Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the latest installment of the most biased, the most untrustworthy, and the most opinionated news network on the interwebs. This is the Crimson News Network. How are we all doing tonight? Right now, it looks like we just have Jeremy Turner. Sorry, I am a bit late. I had a bunch of stuff to sort through before the stream, and I didn't realize how much it was actually going to be. So I didn't get all of it. I still have some of the more important points that we're gonna cover tonight. But needless to say, I don't think I got enough of it. What the heck is going on here? And there is Marcel. How are you doing, Marcel? So on the agenda tonight, obviously, we're going to be talking about some of the new manga, anime kind of stuff that has come across my feed. A few of the things that are going to be like coming up, I guess, and some like new announcements and all that. But really, the big thing is it seems that people on the right almost insist upon losing the culture war or just losing in politics in general. Whether that be through video games, through anime, or what have you, they seem to drastically misunderstand what it is that is actually keeping them politically and culturally relevant. And they are perfectly content to burn all of that because, surprise, surprise, horseshoe theory. So tonight we're going to be talking a lot about a particular Korean guy who used to appear on Weebs and Waifus, Kangmin Lee, because he decided to step in it this past week since the last show I did, and has since gone off on a tirade talking about a lot of things that just I don't think have gone well for him, and I don't think the points that he's made are particularly good. But that said, let's start off on the right note, and we are going to talk about some anime and manga. This is the one I wanted to share first, and we will bring this up here. This one seemed interesting to me, so we're going to talk about it. Kind of in line with the whole thing going on tonight. Sexy gal fishing comedy, Tsute Tabetai Gal Sawasan. Recommended by Hajime no Ippo creator George Morikawa and Koji Mori. Koji Mori is currently the person working on Berserk, by the way. So, Fishing X gourmet comedy about a young office worker who likes to relax by going boat fishing on the sea. One day, a busty, flashy gal appears, asking him for help in learning the ropes of fishing and cooking. Somehow, it ends up with him accidentally seeing her breasts in the process. A day later, it turns out that the flashy girl is, in fact, his boss's daughter transferring to his company, and she tells him straight, "Keep teaching me fishing, or I'll tell my dad that you saw my jugs." Honestly, this seems like a decent one. Something that I would legitimately read. And I mean, given the cover art here, like, I feel like that's perfectly respectable, don't you, gentlemen? I look, I have never been one for fishing, but this one legitimately has my interest. You know, I can't put my finger on it. I can't put my finger on it. But that is hardly the first thing on the list for new stuff. And unfortunately, this next one is not so exciting. A Returner's Magic Should Be Special TV anime season 2 will air in 2026. And now, to preface this, not a finger crimson, you would need 2 hands. Pilgrim is currently messaging me about YouTube, so give me a second. I appreciate the concern. Apparently, some people are struggling with YouTube. It's down for some of them. Pilgrim has messaged me to, mention something about it. I personally can't pull up my own stream right now. So I can only for whatever. Oh, you know what? There, it worked. It worked this time. All right, cool. Never mind then. But guys, just letting me know that there might be problems. I appreciate the concern from him. Not a finger crimson. You need 2 hands. Look, I can only have one. I can only have that on screen. But yeah, funny you mentioned Hajime no Ippo. I'm in the middle of watching it right now for the first time. Yeah. I may go looking for that manga. But here is Returner's Magic Should Be Special. And for those of you who aren't familiar with this one, if you watched any amount of New Saga, you can effectively expect the same experience from season 1 of this. It was not a good sort of story or production at all. The most memorable part of it, the biggest part that stuck with me, was its intro, which wasn't half bad. Not the most amazing thing ever, but it was catchy. I somewhat enjoyed it. That said, though, they have renewed it for season 2, and I don't know how, because that first season, horrendous CGI, terrible storytelling, just unlikable characters. Everyone's gooning over the tiny little twink swordsman. It was a weird experience. So this was the intro. This is the first episode of the anime. So the main character, his whole thing is that he's able to, reverse people's spells. So any attack that they throw at him, he can just capture and throw back at them. This chick is like his girlfriend from his first life. Twink swordsman, like I said. And then Ice Queen. And I'm not even going to bother with season 2 because this one was it was a miserable watch for me. My review of this anime was probably one of my harshest reviews that I have ever put up on my channel. I don't think I was very nice to it. But like I said, if you are, somewhat a fan of Returner's Magic Should Be Special, you'll perhaps enjoy that. I'm just personally very surprised that it would get a season 2, unless the situation is that we're looking at something that was already signed on for 2 seasons, since it was only like 12 episodes, if I remember correctly. And this is just the other 12 that they kind of signed on for. But that said, there's a better trailer to talk about tonight. And this is Full Metal Alchemist creator Hiromu Arakawa, a new creation from the creator of Full Metal Alchemist. And this is Demons of the Shadow Realm. I mean, very clear influence with the character design there. Like you can tell that there's a perfect place to pause it to again demonstrate the character designs and everything. The artwork. Interesting. I mean, this trailer does a pretty good job of presenting this show. I need to pause it to do some commentary here so we don't get like too lambasted by it, but like a lot of this looks cool so far. Like there's a lot of intrigue to this. I like the character designs because Full Metal Alchemist has good artwork. And I trust the storytelling skill. Because even though the creator was involved with Moonfall, I believe that's what it was. They didn't actually do any of the writing for that series. In this case, we are specifically looking at so in this case, we're specifically looking at something that is like her creation specifically. Also, hello to the Gray Pilgrim and Rolando A. Ramirez. Yeah, this looks good, and I am interested. Same. Somehow I could only watch. The only thing I could watch was King's Advisors. I would never subject my greatest enemies to that. I'm just kidding. I personally have no beef with the guy, so. Let's just hope one of the characters doesn't have a Napoleon complex. That would be a little bit lame. Airing 2 consecutive cours starting April 2026. This is going to be a spring anime, and that's a good decision considering how much competition there's going to be over winter. Square Enix. So an actual good looking anime. Something that I feel like I can definitively look forward to. However, there is one more tragedy to share tonight. And 2 cours should be really good to get into the story as well. Yes, that's kind of why it's not just 2 cours; it's 2 consecutive cours. So they announced this one a while back, which means I believe that they've been working on it for quite a while. I don't have doubts as to the production quality, especially like seeing the trailer and everything that's been going into this. I feel like I can pretty confidently say I am. There's a good chance I'm going to enjoy it. Unlike this next one that I really don't feel like I want to like talk about, but I have no choice because why? So apparently, someone decided to make a Duolingo series for YouTube. You heard that right. Excuse me, what the fuck was that? What in the actual fuck is that? That's some like creepy pasta shit. They already made the bird the villain, staying with canon. I mean, I respect it and everything, but at the same time, it's like. At this point, I'm just like, this shit's pretty cringe. Can we please not? Can we please not? There are some times where I do genuinely like respect people's like willingness to take creative risks and all that, but I'm not. Sorry, looking at something else. I'm gonna try and see how it goes. That misery is up to you, okay? Either way, that's only like really the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the stupid stuff that we're gonna be talking about on the internet. Um, because as I stated before, we're touching on a lot of the drama that has happened on Twitter particularly and stuff that I've followed. Um, I mean, we got two theatrically released Angry Birds movies. Sure. But I want to forget that they exist, okay? So, internet show on the annoying owl. Sure, why not? All right, so we're getting into the big topic for tonight, and then we have some other stuff to sort of like follow this up with because there was a video shared. Someone already put out a video that pretty much says a lot of the things that I kind of feel about this, and I'll point you guys to that video at the end. But I do have my own thoughts to talk about on this matter because well, former weebs and waifus, I don't really know what happened there. He just kind of stopped showing up to the stream and just like went his own separate way. Kongmin Lee, former member of Weebs and Waifus, has decided that he was going to step. This is a trend with conservatives lately, is they have almost like unanimous, well, not unanimously, but there is a decent sect of them that has decided they want to completely throw whatever advantage that they have had in politics or culture by pissing off the like biggest faction that they're kind of aligned with at this point. and that would be the people who just want to be left alone. And we're going to get into this a little bit more and talk about like Kongman's very invasive beliefs here. But it all centers around the idea of banning corn. We'll just call it corn tonight because I'm going to be using the word a lot. And I don't think the that YouTube is going to be very happy if I call it what it is. But let us begin the show, and I have to actually start by sharing this. So this isn't where it starts, but this is like the earliest part that I could find when I was going back and trying to grab things. So we will go here. So effectively, he made posts talking about how he wants to ban the hub and how he thinks it's evil and that the government absolutely should be, capable of, stopping this stuff. So, state requires age verification over 18. The hub shuts down every time. They're not even trying to hide their agenda at this point. And this is sort of misconstruing the issue. So we'll get into it here. We have V commenting, nobody gives a shit about targeting kids because kids don't have money to pay for stuff anyway. So can we stop being mentally deficient for a second and be honest with what is happening here? Do you, Kongman Lee, feel comfortable with showing your government ID when you want to pleasure yourself? No? Okay. Well, no one else does either. And so please explain the financial advantage for a company to set up a product that's extremely costly for them and also opens them to liabilities if they get hacked when it's common sense that nobody uses it. And his response is, why are you so triggered at the possibility of your corn being taken away? And this is effectively the start. And it kind of shows a little bit of, I don't know if he's just like farming this for clout or whatever the hell, but it's a really, really weird position to take up. And yeah, just to answer the question, I have followed the guy for a while because there was a point at which he actually talked about anime. And I really don't just like unfollow people because they have a opinion that I disagree with. I unfollow them because they're obnoxious or I just don't care to see what they're saying anymore. Anyway, with Kongman Lee, like this whole thing, it sort of spirals out of control. And he makes a lot of misrepresentations throughout this whole thing. So we will go to this next. And this is a very, very long post. And I'm going to make this full screen. He's Christian. What other position would he have? Yes, I know. I know that Kongman Lee is Christian. I get it. There's going to be a little bit more of a discussion on this later as I go through all of the stuff that has happened with this situation. I don't think that it is a bad position to hold to say that corn is bad. That's not an unchristian position. I am specifically bringing this up because there are certain things with this whole faction that Kongman Lee right now sort of is the figurehead of that I have problems with, particularly their definition of what it is and the measures to which they want to go in order to get rid of it. So here we have another long-winded rant, we have a long-winded rant from the guy. I didn't realize that banning corn was such an unpopular position on the right. Well, here's the thing. To talk about this really quickly, the reason the right came back to cultural relevance is because you had a bunch of people who you would label as quote-unquote gooners who were sick and tired of woke people coming at them and berating them for everything they did, so they moved to the right. The right was the one that positioned themselves as the people who were going to leave them alone the most. That is part of it. So yeah, it makes absolute sense that we would that you would say something like, "Yeah, I want to ban this thing that I previously didn't talk about banning ever," and people would react pretty volatilely. The only thing you missed, questioners, is me going over some of the new stuff. Yeah, the yeah, the practically just isn't possible to ban a thing millions of people watch. Well, we'll get into specifically what they would require, even though Kongman himself says he doesn't actually want to do those things. My mentions is full of people calling me an evil authoritarian for wanting to ban hardcore corn. I get your concern about government overreach and unjust censorship, but hardcore is an area that is so black and white. The prevalence of corn has no benefits, only downsides, and it helps. And it'd help individuals, families, and society if we mitigate its reach. And now, again, I'm not saying that there is a good thing about this, but if you want to make this argument that it has no benefits, well, you can also apply that to a lot of things. Or this argument that like, oh well, something is bad for people or it can be very bad for them, therefore we must ban it. So then we should ban literally anything that can ruin someone's life, if that is the logic that we are going to follow. No one is saying that banning it will get rid of it forever. Human nature doesn't change, but politics exists to impose what we believe to be good, and we can leverage power for the betterment of the individual, communities, and the nation. I don't think politics exists to impose what we believe to be good. I believe politics exists to deal with problems that are present within a group or within a nation. Politics exists to address issues with the world in and of itself, not to impose beliefs or behavior upon people. Politics exists to deal with wars, to deal with large scale disagreements, to deal with, economic problems, to deal with things that actually threaten the lives of people, not their morality. This idea of moral neutrality that libertarians have is fundamentally dishonest because you believe the highest good is ensuring maximum autonomy, and I reject that premise. The highest good is goodness, beauty, and truth, and freedoms are a means of achieving that for every individual and for the nation. Governing authorities are not inherently evil, no, but they do tend towards evil regardless of how good the people in charge of them are. I mean, regardless of how good your intent is, even a nation governed, okay, to use a biblical example here, even a nation governed by God Himself still trended towards evil. You want to know why? Because people are corrupt. Before Israel had a king, they were a theocracy. The priests effectively were the closest to God and therefore delivered God's will to the people of Israel. A little bit of biblical knowledge for those of you who may not be as familiar with it. I don't know how many Christians are actually in the chat, but I grew up with a lot of this stuff, so I will share what I know, and to anyone who knows better, feel free to correct me. Either way, even when under the rule of God, Israel still trended towards their own sinful nature. So to say like governing authorities are not inherently evil, that is true. But at the same time, this does not mean that we should always assume that the government is going to be good, because it will not be. Evil people will always rise to power. That is how things work. Power attracts evil people. Exercising political power is not inherently evil. Libertarianism is politically and morally untenable. Then why did your religious right, like your part of the religious right, pretend to be incredibly libertarian and live and let live in order to attract a large group of people that would then help them sway culture and put them in power. And only once they were in power did they heel turn and start talking about this en masse. Because before that point, it had been a pretty like fringe opinion. It had been relegated to a bunch of internet nobodies chatting about this stuff. And then all of a sudden, Trump gets elected, and then you have Melanie Mack, Razor Fist, JDA, a bunch of people, and that's where you got Goonergate. And mass democracy leads to chaos and degeneracy. I am a far right wing traditionalist, not a liberal. I have been clear about this for many years. True, but you also haven't been actively talking about how you want to control other people's lives. I don't believe in burning bridges with anyone whom I consider a friend or an ally against a greater enemy, but it's a bit sad to see that people will denounce me over a very normie belief that we should ban it, a view the founding fathers and most Americans until 40 years ago believed. I'm open to speaking with any creator about this. I've always been open to talking through these ideas instead of past each other. Benevolent dictators are not common at all and are highly regarded in history. A pipe dream, effectively. I'm more like a monarchical monarchist the more I meet people. But we are not the point in human civilization where everyone will agree to banning it. It's not a normie belief. No, I don't believe by any means that this is a normie belief. It's pretty funny. And then here he responds with this: the side that wants to win will always beat the side that wants to be left alone. This is just a political reality. The issue is, this is not how the right got back into power. This is not how Trump got elected. This is not how culture started to shift towards the right. Do you want to know why it shifted? It was because the left was and still is incredibly intolerant with their more fringe side, which is very vocal, is very obnoxious, and their ideas are just as dangerous as anything else. You had a bunch of wokies on the left screaming at you, clutching pearls, and acting like morally superior asses to everything. Whether it was fan service in an anime, whether it was, the fake racism or what have you. It was constantly like spamming of words, all of that. And it just keeps going on and on and on. So here's one of the other things that he then said. So and this is where like he basically screws himself and kind of proves he doesn't really know what he's talking about. As I'm gauging with y'all, I think we might be fundamentally arguing semantics. When I say ban, I don't mean fully get rid of the internet of it. It's not possible or feasible or for obvious reasons, and I am not a fan of digital ID. When I say ban, all I want is for companies and people who produce and distribute it to face legal penalties, fines, jail time, etc. Just shut down these massive companies like OnlyFans, VineGeek, and all the rest. Treat it like prostitution and just arrest those who create and distribute it openly. We can also try to blacklist any sites. Yes, I get that the black market will emerge as it always has, but putting an end to the open glorification and proliferation of it like this will help mitigate its reach to the average person. Penalizing consumption of it today would also not be feasible without massive overreach. So that's not what I'm advocating for. That's where good parenting comes in. There is a way to fight the scourge using political power without the implementation of digital ID. I don't want the government tracking my data and internet usage either. The issue is, you are so blind to what all this says that you don't get the point, or at this stage you are trying to back yourself out of a corner because you literally just this is every argument needs to be semantical. How else will someone know your stance or views? So he wants everyone to become China. He is talking about both sides there. He wants there to be social intolerance. That's already a thing. So here's the issue. Here's what I will raise about this whole statement. So he says he wants to punish the companies. He wants to penalize the companies. That's all he wants to do. He wants to go after the companies. In the internet day and age, that won't do anything, especially because he doesn't want to penalize consumption. He says that he doesn't want the digital ID. He says he doesn't want companies tracking it. And he doesn't want to be tracked by the government, I should say. And he doesn't want to penalize consumption because that's untenable. He wants to go after the companies. You want to know what happens in this scenario? Nothing. Kongmin Lee, with this statement, has reduced his own position to a pointless one. And here's why. Because those companies can now just move to Canada. And I can get a VPN because he's not advocating for the government tracking me or banning VPNs or any of that, or having a digital ID. Nothing changes other than these companies move to Canada or to Mexico or to some other place and people get VPNs. Because we're not going to get punished for consuming it, because you can't stop this without digital ID. That is the only way you can feasibly implement this policy. The only thing you will do is drive those companies out of the United States. That is all you will do. It won't change the production. It won't change the consumption. It is a pointless, worthless position if that is all you are doing. Is that setting in for everyone? You following what I'm saying here? That if you're going to try and enforce something like this, it is utterly pointless unless you are going to make it a problem to consume. This right here is literally the biggest destruction of your own point. You went into this like, we should ban it, but we shouldn't penalize for people for consuming it, and we shouldn't cut off the internet. Does this guy not know how VPNs work? And that's the most frustrating part about this, like with this whole situation. Like, I'll be real with you. Like, I was raised in a Christian home and all that. There are still a lot of like Christian, like of those like core beliefs that I grew up with that I hold. But at the same time, I do not believe that forcing my own beliefs onto people is the way to go about it. Is that a libertarian position? Yes. Because I don't need to go about telling people like how bad or awful their life is. They're like complete strangers, how bad or awful their life is. I don't need to get into power to make people live like me. Because if I did that, then you know what the first thing I would do? Get rid of weed and cigarettes, because I hate the smell of both of those. Yeah, there has to be a cultural shift. What Kongman is asking for is a legal band-aid to a moral issue. You want the legal band-aid for a moral boo-boo. You need to change the heart of the people who choose not to partake in corn, so that the companies will deflate from the lack of participation, and it will create a healthier world. You can't force it. Yeah, you end up running into the Streisand effect, especially with the position that Kong Min puts forward, that we're not going to penalize people for consumption. That's just, you're going to have to. That's where good parenting comes in. And we're not going to ban VPNs. I don't want to be tracked. He wants his cake and to eat it too. And the only thing that this position does is give the government the authority to go and monitor the things that they deem immoral. And believe you me, the government should be the last group of people to deem what is moral or immoral. I'm just saying. I mean, it's not like the country is run by a bunch of people who were flying in a plane with a certain child trafficker or anything, or constantly stealing from the U.S. economy through insider trading and all of that. It's not like everyone in politics is a crook and a monster. But please tell me about how it's a great idea to do all this. But in response, there were a lot of people who came with their own sort of clapbacks. And that is where we get another very long-winded post in the form of permaban. I personally believe there are some things that you really need to understand with this situation. The only reason the right ever held enough power and relevance to even shift the pendulum away from the extreme left was because for many years, so many people, so many of you were the ones who were vocally against censorship, silencing and banning of content, opinions, etc., that are completely lawful and involve consenting adults. No one is asking you to like it. No one is asking you to approve it. Just let adults make their own decisions. Guide them or give opinions and suggestions suggestion best you can, but do not arbitrarily restrict or force behavior just because you think you know better. Make no mistake and misconceptions. That is the biggest reason why the right now has so many people of different walks of life and identities under its wing. And doubly make it no mistake that it is temporary and contingent on your conduct and behavior. The moment you preach, call for, and shout about the very things people left the leftover, censorship, the bans, the silencing of diverse opinions, you should not be shocked when the many people whom gravitated towards your side now call you out and oppose you. In fact, you should expect it. Be glad they are complaining and vocally opposing. It means they still care. It is a warning, not hate. The majority, who are not extreme and not dogmatic, exited the extreme left for the very thing your side are slowly demonstrating in small steps. And they will call you out for heading in the same direction, or heading the same path the extreme left did. If your side continues to dismiss their concerns, attack their worries, or ignore them, you will keep going on that path. The majority's protests, complaints, and their warnings will go silent. They will go silent because they will no longer be there. They would have left you like they did with the extreme left. Your relevance will again, like in the early 2000s, will erode and become a laughingstock. History on the repeat. Forcing your beliefs also isn't a Jesus position. That's the Pharisees. It's also not an American position. Yeah, here's the thing is, if you continue down there is an absolute truth. And I mentioned earlier that there was a video that I thought was really good that summed up this whole position very, very well. Archcast did a very, very good video on this whole topic today. And he says a lot of the things that I myself have been saying on Twitter and here, but he does it in a very effective, like eloquent way. So if you're looking for like a really good breakdown on that, you should look up his video on it, because it is particularly worthwhile. Let's continue moving on, because there is plenty of wild ass stuff that this guy has been on. I can get rid of that because I've already talked about that. And then we'll get into some of the other accolades there. So we can close that tab out and free up some more RAM. And we will move on to the next part of this. So here we have Otaku Espiritu, another anime YouTuber, someone who I follow on Twitter because he does bring a lot of good memes and nice fan art and all that to the table. And he's been talking pretty heavily about the censorship. More RAM for the RAM God. Yes. Anyway. Again, so here, Kongmin Lee went into it like this. I'm losing followers because I hate it and want it outlawed. Insanity. My primary allegiance is to Christ. I've never been shy about that. I'm not a libertarian. It's a losing, untenable ideology. Again, that losing, untenable ideology is the exact reason that the right is in power right now. Because they were the ones who were willing to leave people alone. Because all of the normies, the unpolitical people, saw what the left was doing and decided to flock to the right because they were the ones who weren't advocating for jumping down other people's throats. And now you are doing the exact same thing to them. For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul? Now, I don't doubt that Kongmin Lee has a good grasp of Christian beliefs. Because, again, the whole thing with corn, that is the sin of lust. There is a problem with that in Christian belief. I'm not arguing that point, and I'm not even arguing that it's good for a person. Much like there are a lot of things that people do that are not good for them. Smoking isn't good for a person. But we don't necessarily regulate things based on what is good for a person. We regulate things based on, is this a danger? Are there going to be massive immediate consequences for this? Or is this just going to be someone will ruin their life because of their own bad decision making? You cannot use the government to try and bludgeon people into making the good decision. It won't work. I don't think there is an instance in human history where it has worked. But I digress. You're losing followers because you're defending a system like digital ID, which is and would be forced upon people under this idea of banning it. Well, not necessarily. It's just if you want this ban to be effective, it does require that. You're also getting exposed for not caring about kids at all, because when told how the UK tried this and it failed and makes things worse for kids, you then said you don't give a crap or give a shit. I don't know why I decided to censor myself there. But you wanted to force it anyway. So you don't care about kids or people's health. You just want more government oversight, e.g., why you're really losing followers. But you don't want to tell the truth. He also follows, Kongmin Lee also follows that post up with the longer rant. So I no, I'm not the first Christian creator slammed for advocating for morals and standards. Razor Fist and Melanie Mack were relentlessly mischaracterized and attacked for having Christian beliefs. Melanie Mack was criticized for the complete heel turn of being on the we should be allowed to have beautiful women, and then immediately turning around and saying like you're a gooner, you're bad the moment Trump gets elected, just alongside JDA, John of the Rice. Yeah, I'm reverting back to like 2016 Crimson before I, lost my filter and all of that. Mm. Not like reverting back to using fewer swears wouldn't be a good thing for me, especially because I work around people all the time while I'm at my job. We do home improvement stuff. So, not swearing like a sailor is a benefit. And this is where he gets into like the some like more retarded logic here. But yeah, with Melanie Mack, it was she continued to double down on a ridiculous position of calling people out that she had previously been completely fine with hanging out with. And with Razor Fist, it was a couple of things, but he didn't really say that he was like all for banning anything. He just specifically said that we should insist upon things that are not caustic to the soul, which again, I do agree with. You can have a good game, anime, movie, whatever, without something that is, I guess if you want to describe it that way, spiritually caustic. But that doesn't negate people's right to be able to do certain things. Ultimately, if people, ultimately, even if people are on our side politically, it is inevitable that there are some who will revile us for our faith and beliefs as Christians. Not necessarily. A lot of these people wouldn't have cared about your beliefs, um, your Christian beliefs. And I know this because I interact with a lot of them. They hold this position because you have now decided that you want to start making choices about other people's lives in the way they want to. Why are all the geeks and gamers people going crazy? Again, I think the questioner's got it right here. Like, I don't think Melanie Mack and Razor Fist wasn't even that bad. I give him a lot of shit because he's a fake internet tough guy, but Razor Fist is like he's small potatoes compared to people like Melanie Mack or JDA who did complete heel turns on these topics. Um, Even Gothix has gotten in on this. She went and started making comments on all this stuff, and Epic Mike went and called her out for it. Which I should actually bring up some of those posts because I have comments of my own on there. He's just talking about the people that used to come on with them, perhaps. So yeah, here's the stupid part of this whole thing is they will scream, "Stop imposing your beliefs on us," and then impose their views of the world on us. Where is someone telling you to like a certain thing? Is someone telling you to support a certain thing? No, they're just telling you that they don't want to subscribe to your specific worldview. I don't know much about Gothics, so all I saw was her post and Epic Mike uh, quoting her and basically saying, "You've got this wrong. It's not about that. It's about government control." So yes, this is two completely different things here, and this is a victim complex bullshit. To be entirely honest, Kongmin is associating two things that aren't exactly equal. He is going out and advocating for policy that directly dictates people's lives. And the other side that he is complaining about, that is imposing their worldview on him, is the side saying, how about we don't? How about we leave it alone and you can spend your time away from it? You are perfectly, um, you are completely allowed to do that. You've got mail. It's nothing important. I just checked it. I appreciate those who have disagreed with me honestly and respectfully, and I still invite any creator to a live conversation or debate. But the whole outrage against me on this platform the past day has been about how I want to impose digital ID and have the government control everyone's inherent internet activity. I've been very clear that restrictions on this can be achieved without this. They're pointless if you don't have those because people will very easily get around them. But naysayers still insist I'm obsessed with the state controlling your entire life. Yes, because if you actually want to enforce this, you legitimately do have to resort to digital ID or being invasive with other people's lives. I think I've as clear and charitable as I can about this issue. Have a blessed week. Again, I feel like it is. He's been very clear to the point where like he's just saying stuff to saying stuff. But of course, I don't need to use my words. Somebody has already done a lot of the thinking for me on this. So we're gonna bring up permaband again. There we go. That's the button. It's actually funny how you don't see the irony that you're imposing your worldview of this utopian ideal moral neutrality and live and let live onto me. Number one, what you don't restrict me from restricting you, or what don't restrict me from restricting you is your response. Yeah, that's effectively the big point with that one. You want to restrict people, and you're complaining that people are pushing back against your restriction, and that is somehow restricting you and your lifestyle. So your lifestyle is all about restricting everyone. By your logic, no one except you is allowed to have an opinion you dislike. Because the mere act of voicing a disagreement, you have to just throw the "you are imposing your worldview on me" clapback. That's a tactic of cowardice. I'd see more. Or I'd see from a member of the woke you call out daily. Number two, and just for a little bit of reference, uh, and we force behaviors all the time. So number two, rich words too, considering that you have spent an entire day trying to dictate what other adults. Sorry, I guess this is yeah, a little bit of a different post. So, considering that you spend an entire day trying to dictate what other adults should and should not be able to do or consume as adults in private, that cause no harm against others or infringe on the rights of others. You again disingenuously equate the consumption of it to something that actively harms or infringes the rights of others, murder, theft, assault. Yeah, that was something that he did post, and maybe I should bring that up. This is again something you have called out on the left, or called the left out on. It's odd how you are relying on their tactics again. For someone who is trying so hard to insinuate that I am talking in bad faith, the fact you used these examples is indicative of your intent to just win. Yeah, he actually stated this. The side that wants to win, it kind of shows. Your whole off tangent remark about U.S. founding fathers is irrelevant. It is just or rhetoric. It's your opinion and speculation of what you think long departed people would hypothetically behave. Also, as far as the founding fathers go, I can tell you for sure that Benjamin Franklin was absolutely a player, and I don't doubt that some of the other founding fathers were less Christian than a lot of people like to make them out. Benjamin Franklin was effectively a man whore. He did a lot of philandering while he was over in France. It is just also people rely on historical cultural shift information from the 2000s because uh, they are contemporaneous and still hold enough socio-political and cultural relevance for making predictive observations. But for you wanting to advocate for the restrictions of the freedoms of others, no one would impose their worldview on you. Even then, they aren't imposing their worldview on you, they are exchanging. You chose to opine on social media. Others, others can equally choose to reply to you with varying levels of agreement. I reiterate too, you are one of the few asking for things to be banned, not the people responding to you. Their response to you can be summed up as, "How about no?" Others who replied to you wouldn't have minded as much if you merely said, "I hate it. I think it's harmful," but individuals have a responsibility to decide if they consume it, not the government. You, however, advocate for the government intervention. You threw the proverbial stone at others, and now you want to upset. And now you are upset that a rubber ball is being thrown back. And I guess this is where we can get into what he's talking about. This is like the original response that we got here from him. So the entirety of your post is a red herring. You don't address anything I mentioned in my post at all. It's actually funny how you don't see the irony that you are imposing your worldview of this utopian ideal of moral neutrality. Okay. Your view of history is relegated. It's 2025. I thought we were done with the whole live and let live, pluralism, multiculturalism, or do what the hell you want. Everyone can kumbaya and live together in harmony. Although everyone's addressed and addicted, and we have no shared values or common creed garbage. This is the problem with a populace who tries to live out liberty without virtue. Either way, there is quite a bit of ridiculousness when this whole conversation comes along. So, I mean, in the end, it's not just Kong Min Lee who has voiced opinions like this. We know what it is when we see it. It is graphic. It is graphic depictions of nudity of a gratuitous nature, particularly showing the act of sex or other sexual acts. None of that was censored by the right. The right is merely demanding common sense regulations on the ability for children to access. Interesting. That is us being tame now. Many of us would love to ban it altogether. Also, yes, some anime and retarded games should be banned from children consuming it. This isn't controversial, and you guys seem to want children addicted. Because your measures would require it being invasive of people's lives. Digital ID is not common sense regulation. It is absolutely not. I don't think it is fair whatsoever to respond to say that. And again, nobody is saying that children should be, viewing corn. I don't believe children should be viewing corn, and you should be doing your due diligence as a parent to make sure that they're not getting into anything. Can you absolutely 100% watertight things? No. Unfortunately, unless you like completely insulate your kid from the world, you're never going to keep them away from this stuff. And that in and of itself is not healthy. But if your idea is to, implement measures that will ultimately be used to full on get rid of stuff, I hate to break it to you, but you kind of are authoritarian. I mean, your kid's not supposed to be playing Call of Duty or going to Demon Slayer, and yet you're still taking your fucking 7-year-old to watch a movie where people are getting beheaded, dismembered, disemboweled, and turned into red paste. I'll read through this really quick. In all seriousness, Gaijin, or sorry, I guess right winger, right person. I was trying to do a favor by warning you all. You all are dangerously close to the proverbial cliff and are just a few steps away from falling. And my posts to you in the past hours are just telling you to stop before it happens. But if you want to return to being irrelevant laughingstocks who lost all power and cultural irrelevance like the 2000s, just keep going on, I guess. Keep pushing the population wide UK style digital ID or repeatedly yelling ban it or ban violent video games using think of the children as a convenient cudgel. Or if you or if you by off chance are serious, loudly begging for government control instead of educating parents to be better parents. If you if what we all learned over the past few months with Collective Shout, UK, and the payment processors, children are just an excuse and it was never about them. But I digress. You do you. Just don't complain or get too shocked in the future and start asking, why are we lacking support? Better yet, we have a. Oh, that's a lot of them. I don't. I guess we'll briefly skim over this. It doesn't stop with just that. We have a compilation of people who have varying. That was my phone falling out of my pocket. Degrees of feeling on this. So this is from an erotic video game. You can't even make this up. The person is a YouTuber. There's a chance kids watch the content. They come to Twitter and see sexualized content. The reason they're against any form of age restriction is they know on some level that young teens will engage with softcore content and prop them up. I've been saying it for years. Anime is a new gooner gateway drug. There you go. Here we go. Between midlife crisis, Gen Xers throwing piles of money at OnlyFans thoughts, and anime gooners spending $500 a week to unlock on unlocks for anime games, we're so cooked, as the kids say. Is a cancer on society. Banning it feels like chemo, but it isn't. It's just declaring yourself cancer free without taking a single treatment. Even if by some miracle your biopsy comes up clean twice in a row, give it a few months, it will be in critical condition. Everything people use to substitute for needs to be eliminated. And it's weird how every time this subject is brought up, everyone wants to ban it, but overly sexualized content are not mentioned. And this is again where I'm talking about where Kangmin aligns himself with a lot of people who are completely against a lot of things. It isn't just the hardcore stuff. It gets into anything that is sexualized. You'll find out half the gooners out there, male or female, have an anime obsession. You'd have to go further than bans and ban overt sexualization as a trigger. But this, again, banning donuts and candies, hoping for everyone to get skinny. They're requiring age verification to engage with it. It isn't a ban. It is a stop targeting kids or giving them accessibility. How does it cope with freedom of expression? If you prove those expressions are fundamentally harmful to society, they then claim that you're a big that wants to keep oppressed voices down. Some of this logic isn't logicking. Hail, Crimson. My big problem with the anti. Oh, also, by the way, hello, JM. With the anti Gooners is they don't define their terms by their own rhetoric. The statue of David and creation of Adam would be corn. Probably meant fig. We can't let the strict religious types have any power. They shit the bed every time. I have adult games that I don't let kids even watch me play because it's not appropriate for them. This will continue until they show that they can understand the difference between reality and fake. It's just a Kongman Lee wants to talk about, like, oh, well, all we want to do is get rid of this one thing. You have no idea. You have no idea how ineffective your idea is without the extremes. You need to go to those extremes if you really want to carry it out, or if you're really serious about carrying it out. I've also binged Fragrant Flower Blooms with Dignity in the past 2 days. It's absolutely fantastic. Yes, it absolutely is. It is S tier romance. I love it. I'm really glad to see some of the other people around here are enjoying it as well. Um, so I guess following statement. So we absolutely won't accept this. It's a bad proposal, plain and simple. That would set innovation back and prevent the U.S. from becoming the crypto cap. What the fuck is this? To extend ID verification to decentralized finance. Okay. I guess that's that. So yeah, ultimately, we end on this note with Mr. Kongman Lee saying everyone is a free speech absolutist until young adults make some edgy jokes in a group chat. This proves that free speech absolutism doesn't exist. Everyone has standards and limits for what they consider acceptable speech. Even self-proclaimed they can't speak. Self-proclaimed free speech absolutists believe there should be limits on speech enforced either by the state corporations. I wish people would be more honest about this. It's an awful place for nuance. Well, it's an awful place when you're quite literally advocating for a terrible piece of policy with no bite to it that will do absolutely nothing. Anyway, I just wanted to stop in and say hi. I'll take care of yourselves. All right, thanks for stopping by. Hello, Arceus. How are we doing tonight? At this point, I'm wondering how much Brittany hates me for making her watch Let's Play. Anyway, the big issue I ultimately have with this, and you can go look up Archcast's video on this. It is specifically the fact that if you want to enforce this, you need digital ID. Because if all you're doing is kicking the companies out of the country, the only thing you've done is make it mildly more inconvenient. Kongman Lee's whole policy proposed here is effectively. I'm all right. She will start it tonight, I'm sure. You're doing all right? I'm doing great. Could have been better because of lack of sleep, but oh well. And mostly just losing my mind over this insanity that I've been covering tonight. Either way, to sum up this whole thing, like I said, Archcast has a good video on this. He does a really good job of covering this whole topic. But regardless of how you feel about the material, I don't think that the policy that Kongman Lee puts forward, insofar as if you're going to deal with corn, all you want to do is kick out the companies. If you actually want to go after it, the policy has to have bite. You have to stop people from consuming it, for one. But you don't want to punish people for consuming it. You think it's an untenable position. So the companies move out of the country. People adopt VPNs because, again, you have said you don't want digital ID. You don't want to track people. You don't want to give that power to the government. And they just continue doing what they've been doing. You are raising all of this stink, talking about how you want to ban it, and how you want to get rid of it from society, but you do not have in your own layout for how you would do it, you do not have the teeth to actually go about it. Because if you really want to stop making people consume, if you really want to stop, you want to make people stop consuming something, or you're ultimately going to have to punish them for consuming it. Make it risky for them first, and make it riskier to produce it. And even then, you're not going to catch everyone. But because you have policies against the government tracking people, against punishing people for consumption, you've put forward a completely useless position. One that only serves to virtue signal your own Christian beliefs. And that's fine, but there is a much better way to go about that doesn't cost your entire side the division of the people who came to the right because they wanted to get away from everyone who was scolding them for living their lives the way they wanted to. And again, you claim that this live and let live doesn't work. Well, guess what? That live and let live is, again, what caused the right to get into power to begin with. That is what caused a lot of people culturally to side with people on the right or more conservative voices on the internet, because they were the ones advocating for the freedom to talk about what you want to, the freedom to make jokes, the freedom to tell stories, and not have to be beholden to a political or religious mold. The more I think about this, the more this guy, he's officially on the shit list. Like him, Matt Walsh, JDA, the light novel historian, they're all on the shit. They're all officially on the crimson shit list. But the more I listen to him explain his position, it just makes less and less sense. It makes him sound like a complete ignoramus. And before we move on to some of the final things of the night, Jeremy Turner with the member message for 8 months. Hit the like button, y'all. Yes, hit the like button. I appreciate it if you do. Also, Brittany Bunny was in here. Bunny Brittany was in here saying, my suffering will be your suffering. No, your suffering will be my enjoyment. You don't understand. I am a sadist. I love to torture people. I love to make everyone miserable. I laugh at their pain. If you've seen The Amazing Digital Circus, it's basically like Jax, where he just loves to torture people. I'm an asshole. That is sad, man. I am a sad man. Perhaps I will cover this another time. That's probably relevant to a video. So I'm going to paste that in my private little Discord and move on. I don't really feel like I need to talk about that one, but fuck, I want a Dr. Pepper right now. Conman Lee is not the only person to go out of their way to make absolutely asinine cultural takes that make conservatives look stupid, by the way. And this whole night is basically dedicated to, shitting on dumb conservative views, because I mean, I gotta keep things even, I gotta keep things even. Preach, Crimson, as Brittany starts an argument with Crimson. All right. So here we go. Here's the last idiot take for the night, and this has nothing really to do with anime, but more so to do with video games, because we have James Lindsay, the anti-communist, talking about video games and how they are worthless. I'm 46 years old. I stopped playing video games when I was 25. Then I finished a PhD. And then he, of course, goes to quote 1 Corinthians 13:11. When I was a child, I spoke as a child, understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. Effectively trying to make the argument that Jeremy Turner is a real one. Yes. Yeah, I heard about this one. I'm 25 now. Bro, I'm 20. I'm 26. Anyway, so he's effectively trying to use this verse that is talking specifically. Well, see, here's the thing: is a lot of people thought he was quoting C.S. Lewis because this verse is what C.S. Lewis starts that quote with, and he ends it with including the notion of being all grown up. It's one of my favorite quotes out there. I love it. But James Lindsay uses this, a quote, a verse from the Bible that is specifically talking about as you grow in your spiritual life, you should engage deeper and deeper with Christian principles. You should mature your understanding. You should move on from basic topics to deeper things. Effectively, the idea is sorry, train of thought. Effectively, the idea is that, like, as a Christian, you do not just call yourself a Christian and that's it. It's a process that happens after that. But he's using it to talk about how you shouldn't have fun, and this is like one of the big things that's going to lose people in any sort of cultural context. And to quickly, like, talk about this, to be honest with you, I don't know much about what these people talk about. I try not to associate with people or engage in comments for my own sanity and mental health, but glad you can handle it. That's fine. Like, I respect anyone who doesn't want to get into this. I dropped politics for a while, but when it comes specifically to entertainment and all that, I don't try to take sides in politics or anything around here. But when it comes to entertainment or people who are attacking it just on the fact that it exists, like video games or anime or anything, that's where I take personal issue. Because escapism in and of itself, entertainment in and of itself, culture in and of itself is important. And people who dismiss that or want to talk like you're lesser than for enjoying it, well, they can get bent. And that's effectively what Lindsay is saying here. Is he's one of those old school guys who thinks that, the idea of having fun or enjoying something is bad. And yeah, I doubt he stopped watching football or reading books. There is legitimately no reason that specifically video games should be singled out from any form of entertainment. Can they be addictive? Can people ruin their lives because of video games? Absolutely. You can sink so much time into video games that you can completely neglect your real life. Same with anime. You can sink so much time and money into it that it can ruin your life. But same with everything. Same with alcohol. Same with reading. Same with food. Same with sports. I agree with you, and I'm happy to see people like you discuss it because it definitely helps. I appreciate that, man. Normies don't understand that video games are a hobby like literally any other form of entertainment. Yes. If video games must be singled out because they are, for whatever reason, bad or childish, movies should be too. And Crimson knows the effects of alcohol. I'm gonna have more tonight after the stream, boy. Drunk Crimson will be no one's problem tonight. But since I was on the train of like talking about people who seem to like not understand what is going on with culture, I figured I would bring that up. Copy that. I'm not going to address this here tonight because I don't think it is like a good segue for this. Oops. So we will close that out. We will Sorry, Blaz, but I'm putting you in a different place as well. You're going to go over here. Don't want to talk about that tonight, even though I pulled it up. We will, however, but there's a difference between knowing you're overdoing it in a specific activity or a particular thing and limiting yourself to what's healthy. Yes, I think the reason that people are so against video games is because they don't have the intelligence to use their brains. TV, books, etc., really require intellectual skill. I would say that with TV, it's a little bit more normie friendly because there are a lot of things where you can just turn your brain off and enjoy them. But it really depends when it comes to fiction. There is fiction that doesn't require you to think, and there is fiction that actually has a lot of like deeper things that do require you to, actually look into them. But I think what I want to round out the night with is a little bit of One Punch Man. And I'm going to save these articles and some of these other things that I have pulled up because I didn't know how long I was necessarily going to go on these topics. But I kind of want to read through these articles to see exactly what they say. So I'll save them for another time. Like Lord of Mysteries. God. So let's share screen and round it out with this one last topic. One Punch Man. So what a fan account has responded to a lot of the reaction channels and the criticism of the first episode of One Punch Man. And I think there are some things to go over when it comes to, like in regards to a lot of this stuff. And so we're going to go through this thread and, close it out. I think enough time has passed to address the elephant in the room, the reaction channels. But before we get into that, a few words about episode 1. After rewatching it a couple more times, it was just okay. There were many weak moments, but also some really good ones that elevated it for me, especially the whole scene with Fubuki visiting Saitama and the gang at his place. That part was great. That said, overall, this episode was a disappointment. I'm hoping it was a calculated production decision, that they intentionally held back here to focus more time and resources on the animation, on the action sequences in the future episodes. Back to the reactions, they're not entirely wrong. For people who waited 6 years, this was not a great first impression. The lack of movement and those slideshow-like scenes were hard to ignore. That said, I don't think the reactors should be completely dooming the entire series off the first episode. If this was a strategic production choice, the payoff might come later. We'll have to wait and see. But this is just my humble opinion. That's all I've got to say about the episode and the reactors. Thanks for reading. So when it comes to like One Punch Man, I was pretty critical of the first episode when I watched it. I don't think that the one frame man allegations are completely unjustified. However, I will also add the caveat that sometimes series decide to, just sink a lot of their budget into one specific fight scene and make it something spectacular. So with One Punch Man, maybe I was just hyper focused on it because I had seen the criticism before going into it. But it did seem like there was a lot of static, a lot of the strategies you would expect of someone trying to cut back on the amount of animation you actually have to do. Everyone's going to be entitled to their opinion. I don't care if you don't, or if you like it or don't like it. That's irrelevant to me. I'm trying to be as objective as possible about this and sort of just discuss the situation. I didn't think the animation was particularly spectacular, even for given like just a normal slice of life show. You could pick up one of the other like random anime that are just completely slice of life series that are all just talking, and they probably have more movement per scene, like more animation per scene than what we got out of One Punch Man in the first episode. But who knows? Sometimes terrible first episodes can be followed up by some really, really good stuff. I do think it is completely unfair to dismiss the entire anime, the entire season of the anime, based off of one episode. And I enjoy One Punch Man. I've liked it. So I'm going to hold out hope that maybe, in spite of what we've seen, we will get some really, really good stuff out of a very action-packed anime or action-packed series. I'm probably going to like it because I'm not so all about the animation all the time. With One Punch Man, I feel like it will benefit from some good animation. And like I said, if they save that specifically for certain big fights later on in the show, there are going to be a lot of really, really big ones. Then perhaps the opinion turns around. But to just be objective, I don't think this was the strongest that this first episode of the season could have been. And I recognize a lot of the strategies in this as things that have been used in the past to make things look more animated than they actually are. Looped animation, a lot of like slow still frames and shots from people in the back. But we'll see how the rest of it performs. We will genuinely have to judge it based on how the entire anime goes. Because, like, just to give an example, like ReZero Season 3, I think, is pretty well animated. I think they do a good job. But right in the middle of it, you get Vincent Chansard doing an entire action sequence, and it is a cut above the entire rest of the anime. Now, do I wish they would have had that level of animation across the whole thing? Absolutely. But do I think that it's justifiable in criticizing it for specifically only having that one fight? No. And nothing is going to be perfect. Like you can talk about Black Clover like that. Naruto has a lot of really good fights, but it also has a lot of meh fights and animation. So can we accurately say that this is going to be a great or a bad adaptation? I feel like with a lot of the things that have happened to One Punch Man season 3, as we have gone through as we have seen its production come along, I think there is room for concern. But I don't want to doom and gloom it. I don't want to like condemn it right out the gate. So we're going to give it a couple of episodes. And that's going to be about it for tonight. And I'll end with a couple of announcements. Basically, so Saturday is, of course, the usual animated. I will be doing my usual anime reviews, talking about all the things that I watch and all that. Probably not going to post any more videos this week, unless I do some like shorts or something, because I am full on like into the My Dress Up Darling stuff. I have completed the script. I have done all of my I've gotten through my final draft, finally, and I'm going into recording. And this thing is 12 pages long. It's going to be a lot of work. So I may not post any like major videos. And as far as summer goes, the ones that I didn't cover, there are a few. If I remember correctly, let's see if I can look up the ones that I will not be covering. There are 4. Betrothed to My Sister's Ex, On Mio Kaiten, Detectives These Days Are Crazy, and Game Center Girl. I won't be making videos on those because the My Dress Up Darling video is just that big. It's completely untenable for me to try and do that. So if you don't hear from me when it comes to videos for a little while, you know why. I'm busy, especially because I have a full-time job on top of all this. I will most definitely, though, be continuing on with the streaming. So With all that said, have yourselves a good night. I'm probably going to go drink and catch up all the way up on Isekai Quartet and Akiba Maid War. Have a good night, everyone, and enjoy the magic swearing.
Hibana-chan.